I'm Master Xeon, and you're watching Boxcutter TV. In this particular video, I wanted to actually gut the audio out and just upload it the way it was as a time lapse and just put music behind it. But I actually tried to talk throughout this entire video, even though it's a little bit late at night and kind of tired. But I wanted to just kind of go through the process of using boxcutter and a little bit of hardops to create this little like boxcutter HQ diorama, using a little bit of Realgrass at the bottom here to put the foliage at the end, and just create a staircase leading up to a small building where we house our boxes. So my girlfriend's totally mad at me for spending all day working on hops, so I figured before I spend some time with her, I'd spend a little bit more time working on hops, so I'd do a video before getting out of here. So the first thing I'll do is grab this cube and just GZ1. And this video is going to be more of a design cinema kind of discussion talk, just kind of chill, just hang out talking modeling. So it may be a tutorial, it might be the worst tutorial ever, might just be me modeling, just talking casually, but you know, let's get in there, let's just do this. So we got our cube on the ground floor, and the first thing I'm going to do is press Control A and set the location to the floor. That way if I scale it, it scales from the center of the face at the bottom of the floor, because that's where the 3D cursor is at. And also when you reset the location, it sets the 3D cursor, it sets the origin to the center here. And look, there I go over explaining. There's no need to explain this stuff, you guys should get this basic stuff. So we'll tab into edit mode, press 2, select this, and Q in the latest update, which was put out, change mark to be S mark, just because a lot of people were from the QD gang were exclaiming that they really miss the S behavior of going from Q to S, which I realize is a very good point. I should become a member of the QD gang. So in this video, I want to announce that QD gang right here at max. I'm gonna try to just QS, just get in there and just use these hotkeys. However, I think that's just a little too fast for the people viewing these videos. So for now, we'll just try to keep things a little more relaxed. So the next thing I want to do here is actually grab this bottom face, duplicate it, press P, and separate it into its own mesh. Control A, visual geometry to mesh. And with this small piece, we're gonna delete everything else, keeping only this. So far, so good. And we'll Control A, visual geometry to mesh, delete this vert, and so now we have, there we go, visual geometry to mesh. And it looks like I'm actually trying to keep the bevel that's going on here, so let's duplicate it, keep it in place, Control A, visual geometry to mesh, select these 4 pieces, Control I, delete everything else, select this, Control I, probably should have been more accurate from the get-go. And now we have what we want, and so we'll delete that vert, and now we have this edge that's in the shape of our box here. So what I'll do is under operations, we'll control click smart apply to switch it to a curve, but instead of leaving it on a curve, we're going to right click cancel that, and then tab into edit mode. And the direction in all the test cases has always shown this to be going in the wrong direction every time I do this particular conversion process. However, from here we'll shift S, snap, cursor to selected, shift A, plane, and we'll just move this out while holding control to snap to increment. And we'll just bring that down and just jump into Q array. So we'll just move this out and then just go in the Control tilde helper to adjust the array, because it's easier here, or it should have been easier here if we were actually using relative instead of constant. So with relative on, we'll also hit merge, which will make everything merge, and then we'll shift select our curve, which will be blocked by our cube. So we'll select this, shift select this after hiding it. And the other thing is I want to set the origin point of the curve to be right here. So shift S, cursor to selected, and then in object mode, origin to cursor. So the origin's here, the origin of this is here. So when we select this and press Control P, we have the parent menu for parenting objects. However, since a curve is the second selection, we have the option for curve deform. So we'll set this to curve deform, and predictably it's behaving as I would want. So we'll put a couple of loops in here, and now we actually have it curving decently. I'll press Alt H to bring the cube back, and we're just creating like a platform here. So we'll select this object, select this, Alt X, mirror it across. We'll select this and then the main object and mirror it this way as well. I could always shift click it, but old habits die hard. So now with this object that we have that's basically looking like this, if we go in wireframe mode, we can actually put a decimate on it in order to simplify it. Sorry, lost my voice there. And we can then hit it with a solidify. So we want to bring that upwards and then hit it with a sharpen to adjust the shading. And we'll just turn the wireframe off in Alt V. And so far so good. We just wanted an object with a dynamic ring around it. And you can even, scale this down as needed. But what I want to do here is select this top dot. We'll turn off grid. I don't need grid for this. The classic dots to me are the dots of winners. And that's what I refer to them as. Winners dots, because every dot is a winner, at least to me, compared to grid dots where most of the dots showing are losers because you can't select them all, but you can select the ones that you want. But for now, I just need classic dots as far as box cutter goes. And in case I didn't say, this is a hops cutter video, so I definitely intend to use both tools at the same time interchangeably, because box cutter is great and hardops is just fantastic, but they're great in their own ways. Like hardops allows for a very procedural, very slow way of working that allows you to really step through the process as you want, with box cutter being a way to just quickly jump through things and just be sporadic as needed, sporadic as you need to be, So we're selecting this object using Q to get to our mod scroll, because mod scroll is one of the options that will show up if you have a pending boolean on the object. And this is because we still have the majority of our brains in place on the Q menu. However, I do want to experiment with making smart tools in the future and begin migrating the brain portions into a different aspect of our workflow. But that's a talk for another day as we get closer with that. But I've kind of determined that the part of hardops that people enjoy are the paths, the the C#, S# workflow, the part that guides people through, like the Boolean workflow with special behaviors in place to ensure that special selections are kept. Also, I'm gonna press Alt V and jump to HQ. It just looks terrible. And so far, this is what we have. So next thing I'll do is just grab this dot and we'll just bring in a face and shift to live, bring that down like so. In fact, if we need, we can shift A, bring a plane in here, make sure it's in the center, and we'll just bevel this in the 2D menu, which should fit exactly what we're dealing with here. However, it appears that we're not, so what we'll need to do is actually bring back this cutter and just cut the cutter. It's a lot easier than what we were about to go through with the madness. So we can even bring back this cutter and just move it over in order to control the size of our doorway. And so, not to get too far from how I did previous demos, usually I try to experiment a little bit in these videos live, but we'll build our doorway the same way. So I'll use a make box. As far as make box goes, I complain heavily that make box used to look a lot better when it was penetrating objects back in the day compared to how it does now. Now it's a little bit harder to tell when it's inside of an object. For example, when I bring it in here, this drives me crazy. So, if you think you're a big complainer, you're nothing compared to me. Probably the chief complainer of tools around Team C. Always talking about how they could be better and how these things drive me nuts. In fact, I have a notepad file on top of this where I'm just writing down notes of things I'll be bringing up to the chef next time we get together. So continuing on here, we've put our doorway, we put our piece above. And so we'll start cutting in some details here. So just using box cutter, we want to cut on the right side here. I forgot we're working on the left side of this shape. So we'll take that, but we'll press X. And you see that the shape didn't get applied. So as far as that goes, under behaviors, we'll turn on apply slices, which, reminded me that I hadn't used applied slices in a while. Sometimes I turn these behaviors off and then I forget about them until a particular aspect of the workflow comes up, like right here where we need it. However, it looks like we found some sort of glitch. So if we turn off apply slices, more than likely it'll be fine. But it looks like we may have to deal with the sort as far as the way that it pertains to vertex groups. So if you're watching this proxy, there's always work to do. So continuing on, we'll just apply to bevel. And so right here, we want to apply everything. And so we could just, I was going to say we could actually use smart apply, which will just apply everything. And we'll just use L to select this, press Control I to select the invert, delete that. Geez, talking about the actual tool usage is so boring, guys. What else is going on in the world? Sorry. I also recently saw the Star Wars movie, and I don't want to be one of those polarizing people, but I hope y'all like that happening to y'all's favorite franchise, because it sure was interesting to see. But anyways, we'll just delete that vertice here, and then continuing on, what I want to do is roll through the mod scroll to get this piece, duplicate it, bring it in, SZ, and we'll just scale this up. And we're just going to use that to cut out our interior here using difference. And so far, so good. I'm no building expert, but after modeling about 4 or 5 of these, I started to find a pattern and really find some fun in this. So that's really the purpose of me doing this video. I know if I don't do it now, I won't do it later. And a lot of people are catching me on Twitter just posting these box houses. So I figured it would be a nice little exercise. I'm always cutting boxes, but I never talk about cases in which cutting boxes can be useful. Like this one, where we've made our own little box bungalow that Rey would live in after she finished taking Luke's legacy. So right here, we'll go into Ngon and draw a small cut here and just cut away. So, I don't normally plan to address mean comments or anything like that in these videos, but it appears to be a recurring theme. So one person wrote yesterday, you should use a script. And when they said that, I laughed out loud, because I write scripts for most of my videos where I'm trying to go over things in an organized fashion. Even my scripts are nonsense. I should just show a script up on the screen, but most of my scripts are about jokes. So, I'll be talking about stuff and I'm like, well, if I make a joke about that, people will definitely remember that particular tip. So I'm just the worst teacher. I'm almost willing to embrace it, except that's a terrible thing to have to embrace. Just be like, hey guys, I'm Master Xeon. I'm the worst instructor alive, because all I talk about are advanced things and can't break things down for the simplest of people who desperately need things to be simplified. I don't know what to do. I don't know why I moved that. So we're just modeling and talking, guys. So I'm going to Shift D, and for this object, we're actually going to shift click this to jump through modifier scroll. And we'll stop it right here, because that's really enough. We actually don't need that pull in, but we do need the mirror. And what I want to do is press Control M and then Z. Control M and then, all right, never mind. I'm just going to press SZ and 0, because, the thing about that particular feature is it's there, and sometimes it's not there, and then we'll SZ scale that out. But seriously, for mirror slash array, anything will bring it up. Shift clicking it will bring up array. Control clicking it will bring it up. But unfortunately, in this state, because there is an additional array, we can't do that. I mean, I am always complaining about array. It's definitely on the task block to be rewritten because of issues with the explicit naming that pertains to array, and this being just kind of a design flaw in the way that it was made. But believe me, all these things mean is that we're going to come back with a better array. And I'm just showing you this right now because, you know, this is freaking terrible. I mean, now I could go back and use array, but I can't use array the way I want. So under add modifier, I'll use a classic array, which I can just press 2 to add an additional array, press Z to add it on the Z axis, and we're back cooking with gas. So not the end of the world. That's the reason that we have multiple arrays, is because in the event that a situation isn't working, the fallback is solved in the other one. So a lot of the time new guys will come in and want to replace things, and it's like, well, we should definitely make sure that every single situation is solved, because users aren't messing around and there's lots of choices for alternatives, and our goal is to definitely keep people working, and having them frustrated is just unacceptable. So continuing on, I'm going to go under edit and preferences, and we're just going to make sure that stairs is enabled. There's this add-on called Stair Mesh Generator that I found on Blender Artist by Mark McKay, that all you do is just Shift A, add stairs. I love this tool. Sometimes you just got to be simple. Like if this guy was watching this video, just know that yeah, I would hire this guy to make a few tools with us. If you ever want to merc for a term, I'll just use some vertex snapping there. And we see that some adjustments are in order. We could just leave it and scale the stairs to fit, but I don't think that's like OSHA compatible. Also, that's the wrong array. I don't know why I keep touching the wrong array. What we want to do is move this array. And this object has some complex modifiers, which means that if I just started cutting it on boxcutter willy-nilly with sort on, you know, good old sort that's so good, just kidding. It is so good, but, you know, sort that's so good. If I were to get in here cutting with it, that, you know, things would just get a little hairy. So I want to show that, and then I want to show how we came up with solutions to make that better, because our goal is definitely to keep people working. Like the biggest things that people could say is, you know, this is a showstopper. This thing stopped me from working. Like we formerly had this error with Blue Box that would show up in local mode. It was just terrible. Actually, for the stairs, that's too many stairs. It just looks crazy to me. So we're going to Shift A, stairs, and for these stairs, we're just going to lower the steps to, I don't know, 3. And we'll just bring this way, maybe with increment. So we'll undo and then bring it forward. This on increment? No. So for some reason, Control Z will allow you to undo your increment, which is, you know, Blender things. And for these stairs, they just look strange now. So we want to scale them down and make it fit. Like I was trying to be a little precise with how I was putting things together as far as being concepty, but it looks like, you know, if I had notes for the creator of Stair Creator, I would say, hey, we lower the stairs, just, you know, maintain that scale. It seems like doing it like this would be counterproductive to, I've been so used to using it with one Blender unit, so that's the first time I ever changed the number of steps. So continuing on, we're just setting ourselves up here for success with our little house on the hill. So far, so good. Except for the Z fighting. You know, the Z fighting is nothing. We could, it's a box away, guys. You know, little Z fight, just a little what fight? No fight. Hardops. Or boxcutter. Boxcutter 2019 has been the year of boxcutter. So earlier I was doing a review of it with Proxy, because he's been the main person working on boxcutter this year. And before 2019, the year of boxcutter was in 2.79. So his whole accomplishment of this year was everything as far as bringing in the 2.8, which is just a massive, unbelievable accomplishment. You know, I can't give him too much praise because I still need him to fix a bunch of bugs, but it was worthy of quite a bit of praise. Like, you know, we look over this and it's important to celebrate what's already happened instead of talking about what must be done and issues and bugs. I mean, we're really crazy about bugs here. Sorry, getting off topic. So continuing on here, so we have our modifier stack, right? And all these modifiers are here. And to keep our modifier stack in sight, we'll just look at it through the in panel. And if I draw a box cut on this, I'm probably going to crash. So let's save this file. Doesn't matter what the name is. I'll never open this again. But you'll get it on Patreon. So here's a cut. Here's everything going wrong. So the solution that we've come up with in the meantime, you know, not my favorite solution, but believe me, this solution works, is you turn off renderability and this bypasses sort. Except for, you know what, that's actually apply scale. But what we want to do is actually go ahead and apply to scale and then adjust our solidify because it's for the better. We don't want unapplied scale. We're about to put a bevel on this thing anyway, so things would have just looked a little weird. We might as well just get this thing looking ready. All right, and then we'll scroll this back, and there we go. So now we're ready to rock and roll. So if I were to begin cutting, you can see that this is added at the end, which is pretty much the same behavior as if you just went in and just turned sort off and was like, I just don't want to deal with sort. But it does get better. So if we control click and add a bevel here, everything's so far so good. You know, we might even lower that bevel down just a little bit. And let's just take a slice out. You know, a lot of box cutter use here. You know, I was pressing all the buttons for box cutter in my hardops videos because I truly love this tool so much. It's the greatest thing ever. When AR, like I always say, when AR first presented this to me, I was like, dude, this cannot be a button in hardops. This is too insane. It would just be forgotten. So we take this, we mirror it to the other side, so far so good. We take this, we mirror it to the other side, so far so good. And this object's looking terrible, so let's shift click, add a weighted normal on it. Maybe even do the same here, put a weighted normal, shift click, just to get that keep sharp action, you know. Really gotta get that changed. And we'll press X, keep a slice, and just do a cut here. And for some reason, always when I'm doing these tutorials, it gets so hot in my office. It's probably because I shut the door, try to work in peace, which reminds me of another comment. You know, someone was talking about my inability to articulate sort. You know, the reason of that is, you know, sometimes I'll be listening to music and the artist is just killing it, you know, just destroying the instrument. Also, just tore that thing up. So don't want to do that for this piece. We don't want to destroy anything. So far so good. We don't have anything mirroring to the back. And for this piece, you know, let's just have a talk with it. And by talk with it, I mean bevel it on one leg, grab this face, push it inwards, and we'll take this face, bring it up, maybe all the way up, and we'll SX scale this out. And from here, I'm gonna need to take off my jacket like I'm about to get in a street brawl with you guys, because geez, it is so freaking hot. You know, I swear I think my girlfriend just plays with the AC to torture me for torturing her, because I mean, I'm sensitive to temperature. I could just tell if someone touched a thermostat in this apartment block. But continuing on, I'm pretty sure there could be like a collage of me complaining about the temperature of this apartment in these damn videos. So we'll just keep on working. So actually, I am gonna have to pause, check on that AC, maybe drink some water. Otherwise, I will not have the strength to go on. But continuing on, we'll select this. I found the strength to go on. Bevel is one of those other things that I complain about heavily. Like, I got a whole tirade planned for tomorrow about how the bevel is just nowhere near acceptable at this current time, and that, you know, must be addressed before Proxy's big vacation, because the bevel just isn't where I want it to be. But just know that I'm always convicted with these issues. I mean, you guys don't even have to point it out. You know, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned repeatedly that, you know, these tools are for like a master plan. You know, like someday I hope to make a game or a short or something, you know, and I want a suite of tools to make that task easier, of execute that vision. So, you know, someday I hope to, you know, visit the whole UV pipeline. Like Substance Painter recently added UVing into Substance Painter, and when they told me that, I was like, oh my god, let me take a crazy cube and send it there, and oh my god, the results I got made me cry. You know, I've been saying internally, I'm like, you know, Hops Unwrap was written in like 20 minutes, and that thing looks better. But I digress. So continuing on, we'll Shift D, and for instead of mod scroll, we will shift click it in order to get just the mod we want, and then turn on mirror. And we're just creating some trim here. So we'll take this with only those two modifiers applied, and we're just going to take these bottom faces and delete the rest. Maybe delete this point in the center, and just take this and extrude it out, just creating a baseboard. And this will trim the perimeter of our building here. And of course we want to give it some room here, but it looks like the normals are flipped. So after running Shift N on it, we can now take this and bevel it to space it out. And that's about as much space as we need. Maybe SX. Get it just precise enough, and then delete the faces. So with this, we'll press Q, go under Add Modifier, Solidify, and we'll just sharpen that. Sharpen is just so fast now. Not to say that it'll slow before, but I've noticed that, you know, life has gotten faster since we've fixed up the cube menu, so I do not regret the changes to it at all. In fact, you know, I still stand steadfast in saying there will not be any major regression as far as what our plans are going forward. It's full steam ahead with, you know, Mission Hops X. So with this, I'm going to take this, mirror that over. I'm also very happy to say that with this most recent release, that this was one of our first experiments in what I call the Hops cinematic canon, that went through as far as doing a release, doing the planned subsequent release, and then executing, you know, basically our plan to make our customers maximum amount of happy by getting them the updates they need precisely in a timely fashion. So I'm going to take this Shift D, and I'm just talking about the 715 to the 715 transition, because the issues that were going on with Mac, I can't stress that, you know, we took them quite. I need to go in local mode with this and get out of that mode. I mean, get out of see-through mode. But, you know, the issues that were going on with Mac, we took very seriously. And all right, so because these are set to not be sorted, they're also set to not be inside of scroll. So instead we'll remove boolean, remove array, second array. We can remove bevel possibly. We can keep all of these because they just make us who we are. And now from here we can just scale this down and bring it out and adjust solidify. Surely, okay, solidify is right here. But it's probably not letting us modify it because the modifier visibility is off. That whole system was added before we ever even dealt with this thing. But you know, these tests are how I find out exactly what needs to be done with these tools, and also why I prefer not to roll directly from a release into another release for a certain person watching. Typically it's acceptable and recommended that we perform tests on this particular add-on and both our add-ons to ensure that everything's working correct, and only perform bug fixes until people are completely pleased. Or at least that's my strategy as far as how we deal with this for customers. You know, we put out a release, we deal with the bug fixes, we perfect it until it's perfect, and then we start working on the next version. But we do not roll into the next version without fixing the issues that people point out. So we'll just scale this down, which probably wasn't needed because when I hit bevel, it'll just make it revert. So really the way to do it is to just scale this down. But I was holding shift, so it went down too far. So maybe something like that. And so far, so good. In fact, we don't even need this back room here. So if we really take a look at this, what's making this mirror? Is it this thing? Okay, it is that thing. And this thing. Alright, so this is exactly how we want our modifiers. Okay, I messed up there. That's exactly how we want our modifiers. And we also probably want these to connect. Voila. So we have our house, the back of our house, one way in, no way out. So I mean, this is kind of one of those final house situations. Also, we'll delete the H to make this ops mirror and just mirror this to the other side, adding a new mirror. And we're just going to turn off sort for all of this because these modifiers need to remain intact until we decide that they no longer need to remain intact. So this definitely messes you up at F12. But the purpose of this is for purely modeling purposes and overriding sort for this very specific type of workflow that we're trying to work out. But one day it won't be connected to that part of modifier. So once it is broken away and there's alternatives, then this will be a completely level of system. But for now, it is something that, you know, we're just currently experimenting with, and we hope you give it a try to see if it helps improve your workflow. So continuing on, if we take a look at our stack here, we can see that we have our booleans, we have our mirror, and everything new that we're doing is being sorted appropriately. And we're just doing cuts and then grabbing those dots and just playing off of them. You know, looking at this, I realized that I am just a box cutter machine. I must apologize, but I haven't been able to give box cutter a proper spin lately. We also put out an update just for that today. There was an issue with laser cut where if the scale was unapplied, it would come out inaccurately. Still sweating like Weird Al in that Amish Paradise music video. Alright, so I should just deal with that. Alright, continuing on. So I adjusted the thermostat a little bit and also took off my overcoat of the 4th Hokage. So now I'm dressed like a regular person. Just kidding, I'm not dressed like the 4th Hokage. That would be weird. But anyways, continuing on, we're just going to box cut this area here and also box cut here. You know, when the bevel's acting right, it's just great. But I just always feel it could be better. Like personally, I want these on-screen widgets of like sliders and things, but we're really just working our way up to that stage because we know that once we do something, we'll have to commit to it. So we want to make sure the idea that we put in place is something that is at least well thought out. For this area, I'm just going to do a cut. And I'm going to look at that and think, huh, I sure wish I kept that. Actually, no, maybe we could put bars in there this time. Just looking at it. No, let's continue with the master plan. So we'll press Q, go to mod scroll, which is just under left mouse click, and we'll select this, use shift bool to bring back the previous piece, which defaults to slash. This default behavior is essential. In fact, I would not even want shift bool to exist without this behavior. I can't emphasize that enough. Some of these tools, I mean, the criteria for their existence is very specific. So I'm lowering the alpha under the viewport display just so we have something to look at that's clear. Maybe make it metallic and rough just to make it look more glassy, give it really something cool look to it. But we'll give it a glass shader because that's how you render realistic glass. Just kidding. But for this, you do want to, let's say, put a mix shader, and we'll put a glass shader, and we'll put a transparent shader. And really that should do it actually for getting a good transparent material in Eevee. So continuing on, the next thing from here is we want to take this step, Shift D, P, and we want to duplicate this face. And with this face, we want to just make it ours. So how will we do that? We first SX, we'll grab this piece, bring it out on the Y, grab the every part, extrude it out, grab this top edge, bevel it. You know, that's off to a start. You know, this is now Master Xeon step. You know, you can't sit here, well, unless you're one of the users, you know, in which case you can sit on MX's stoop anytime. Which kind of reminds me, you know, I took a drink of water a moment ago and I paused and feel much more refreshed now. And it's really thanks to you purchasing the product that I'm able to drink clean water. Previous to hardops, I was drinking water out of hoses, and those hoses didn't belong to me. So what I want to do is select this face here, Shift S, origin to selection, so that way the origin is specifically right here, and we'll array it to be every single step. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll just use array. Let's see, where is it at? There we go. And we'll just leave it right there and adjust this on the modifier level. Array is one of our classics, so I'm of the opinion that this thing could definitely use some improvements. So all these things that I'm pointing out here, I intend to bring up with the team later on and explain how, you know, these are just loose ends on the hop side that we need to begin focusing on and refining, because these tools have been had active tool replacements attempted that were unsuccessful in replacing them. So I would definitely love to take one more shot at them with the current team that we have in our roster, because I feel that we can actually come up with some final solution level solutions here that are similar to the mirror. You know, with the mirror, I never have a lot of notes for it. And so I'm always thinking about how we can come up with a mirror level solution for everything. So I'm always, of course, soliciting for ideas from you, the audience member. You know, talk to you guys, Mr. Robot style. So far, this is what we have. I don't want these two to be moved, so we'll just set it up like that. And now I can actually cut this step, and we will mirror that to the other side using a mirror. And we're able to now work independent of that previous array. But before we actually do that, we probably want to save that for the last step and leave these two on, because we could take advantage of the fact that we had sorting on. I mean, what we need to take advantage of is the fact that we can't draw our box and extrude it the right direction. So 100 points if you know what that means. Alt V, face orientation. God help us, our faces are flipped. So tap into edit mode, select everything, shift in, and it'll flip those faces. An interesting tip about face orientation is if you go in your preferences, under theme and 3D view, there's a face orientation front. You can turn the alpha on that all the way off. And then when you're in face orientation mode, it's not so jarring. But it looks like the steps themselves have some flip normals. So we'll just flip that normal. Let's rotate this around. We're just seeing some interior faces. Like if we go inside, you can see the interior faces of these windows not being solid. So now we got something a little bit better. And let's actually select this, give it the same material with Shift L, and now we're working on our building here. In fact, we can maybe even lower the transparency a little bit so we can focus on working without. Geez, mirror's so black. That's what happens when you add a metallic on. Yeah, something like that for now. And also Alt V, turn off wireframe orientation. The red trim's kind of crazy. It makes me think I did something with the material. So continuing on with our stoop, MX's stoop. So, one of my favorite shapes to cut is something like this, and then just take an edge and dissolve it. Always talking about how I want this as a permanent shape in boxcutter, but really I want it as a custom shape that is part of an idea called simple shape that would have things like stars and rivets and stuff like that, things that people would definitely want to cut over and over, maybe use as custom cutters but not want to make repeatedly, like certain grate patterns and stuff like that. Just earlier today we're talking about some Houdini stuff because they're just having a ball over there, so we really got to start thinking like that for whenever Blender starts transitioning into nodes. Like I'm personally prepared for everything with our workflow to dramatically change at some point due to changes with Blender itself. So we would just roll forward, of course. I mean, unless Blender is stopping us from making boxes, we will continue to figure out the most efficient way to create the most boxiest box. But to the casual observer, you could look at our work and think, all these guys do is just make boxes. But, there's so much more to a box than just that. Like, if you think a box is just a box is... Here I am getting crazy again in my discussions here. Received a comment about that one from the censors, but... Alright, maintaining focus here. So... I'm just drawing shapes and pressing array. I'm so glad array doesn't flicker anymore. Array was also an embarrassing situation. I love reading the comments that pop up on various websites, and array was something that was talked about everywhere. And so I even pointed out to the team, I was like, look, these guys are talking about array even on the underground sites. They're talking about how bad the array is. So, the last major box cutter release was part of a kind of a apologetic arc because we wanted to do a massive update to make up for the shortcomings that came with 7.15. Grid was a big thing, but we also knew that grid in itself had a few small bugs that we also need to perfect in order to get this grid to be the greatest grid possible. Right there, it would not let me draw that shape. Let's try that again. And it looks like I am triggering a repeat shape. So let's roll that back. And if I zoom out, it's probably because I am cutting a shape that's just way too thin. But it'll be fine. I'm just pushing my luck here. Sometimes I get too micro with my cuts, So continuing on. Right here on this wall and not that other wall, I'm just going to draw a box, but I'll press A to go into make, and we're just going to draw a box, just a make box. Fade is probably one of my favorite features of the year. I'm always trying to figure out how to get fade into hops. You know, it's more of a good excuse to bring fade into hops. So my excuse now is drawing. If we get drawing, guys, let's get fade over there. We need drawing to look as good as possible. Definitely want it fading in and out. My goal is to get hops to feel like ESPN someday, where you cut and there's play-by-plays and you really feel the action. You know, I'm not a football fan or anything, but I do like watching compilations on YouTube of bad football moments. You know, I'll probably watch some of those after I do this, except I gotta spend time with my girlfriend. You know, I really should put a box on her finger, to be honest. She's been with me for this entire journey, and all she has for it is a Hops t-shirt. These are some of my best quotes. MX coming to you live from the living room couch. You know, if I keep making jokes like that. But continuing on, just modeling an antenna. You know, I don't really put a lot of thought into this stuff, so it really, when I modeled it earlier, I was like, wow, this asset came out good. What did I learn from the process? Like nothing, because my brain just tuned out into static, because I start just tapping into the ether, you know, just start doing things I've done a million times. It's been happening with robots too. Like, you know, I stopped doing robots because I wanted to see if I could get new ideas in my brain by taking a break and just stepping away from the canvas. But I pick up the pen and start drawing, and it just immediately all comes back. It's like, oh man, it's as if I had many years of modeling robots as experience. So, you know, if you ever wonder about getting rusty, I mean, maybe if you have some neurological things happening with the brain, but for the most part, you know, I'm slightly doubtful that, you know, you would actually completely lose your 3D skills. You know, they might get put back a little bit in your brain, but it's like riding a bike. You know, it'll come back to you. You know, you'll learn a bike real fast if it's barreling downhill. Not saying that's how you should learn Blender, but you know, it could be a quick way to learn a bike. So we're just drawing cuts here, and you know, this particular workflow is nuts. Like the idea was based off of these miniatures that Proxy showed me on Pinterest. I was like, wow, that's cool. I'm gonna try that. And for like 2 or 3 days, I stared at images about it, and so finally I started taking attempts at it today. And I was, you know, just chatting with them, cutting boxes, and I was like, wow, these results are worth talking about. You know, there's some good things going on here, and there's also some more fixes that need to happen with boxcutter. So before you go on vacation, I'm gonna have to give you this list, dog. But you know, I always tell you guys, I'm like the taskmaster of hops. Hops cutter, basically. So I mean, if you have a tool and you want it tasked to death and given to people to be tasked and managed, you know, I'm your guy. I don't know, I'm pretty sure I'm the greatest tool manager that'll ever live now. You know, I'm like the Eric Bischoff of B3D tool. Eric Bischoff might be a bad example. In fact, I don't even want to be Triple H or sheesh, Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was racist, so definitely not Hogan. So maybe not wrestling references on this, but we're just cutting, just having a good old time here. And we want to take this face and we're just going to duplicate it, cut it off, P, and we don't want that. And we'll Shift S, origin to geometry, and we'll select this, Control L, and we just want to copy those modifiers. Crazy, I know, because we have like 8 million bulls, but let's just remove them. It's easier that way. Believe me, it is. And instead of giving this a solidify, it's easier to not. And just do something like this, where we just extrude it out and just jump right in there. In fact, we want to mess with the auto smooth, which when smoothing doesn't work out, instead of changing it in sharpness, I'll just go here and just start messing with these parameters to find the setting that works for me, because it's just a fun way to get in there and play with things. So, you know, if this was supposed to be a hardops video, I definitely failed, because I just began getting in there just using box cutter. But when it comes to cutting boxes, this is the game now. Hops has really set the pace, you know, and the goal isn't even to be fast. I mean, you know, it was born to be fast, but the goal is definitely to just help you get to destination and ensure that you make it there. You know, if you fail to make it to the end of one of these videos, then I've truly failed. And these are the things that I have to look at the lake and think about. I'm like, wow, I really let down customer 503279. I should really do something about that. And I do. You know, a lot of these changes that happened over this last update were intended to resolve a lot of the things that people struggle with in tutorials. So, I mean, if you have a problem with your shading, you know, first of all, call a professional. Just kidding. But, you know, definitely use the shift behavior with the weighted normal, because it's just great when it's working. And it doesn't even require sort beyond. But one day we will have an operator that will be dedicated to helping you deal with your modifiers, but really got to figure out how we want to present that to the user, since you know, dealing with the modifier is very accessible already through something called the modifier panel. But the solution that we're talking about is something like using the sort to smartly help you in an operational manner, and then having that work with the tools. Like, I'm thinking like a configuration assistant for sort that will grab your current modifier menu and then set the sort based off of that, so that you could actually have the sort be smart without even having to disable renderability or something. But you know, that's the benefit of the fun of testing these tools, is just pondering the future ideas and the viability of being able to get someone to do them. So we're just cutting, working on our box house here. In fact, what I'll do is tap in edit mode, grab this edge, shift D, press P, grab it in object mode. Let's go in local. And we're just going to convert geometry to mesh and just hope for the best. We have extra geometry there, so it's already not its best. Do we have extra geometry here? Alright, so we're already off to a bad start. Probably too many points on a straight line when we look at certain areas here. And I don't like that either. So under operations, we'll just use clean mesh. And now things are looking much more like I need it for this. So under operations, we'll control click smart apply in order to get a ring. And we'll just bring that ring up and just scale that curve down. And I figured this would have been a little more, oh, 3D cursor. Oh wait, no, control A, location. And let's see, we can get it right there over the piece we want. So we don't actually have to deviate from the initial idea, which might have compromised the result. And we'll just leave the sub D and press Control A, visual geometry to mesh. Sometimes I press a bunch of buttons when my mind just loses its train of thought, and I just start thinking of every solution at the same time that's in my head. I don't know, I guess that's the best way to put it. I'm not trying to say I'm mental or anything, but just saying there's these times I see all the time where I'm like, I hit every button because it's just easier. Let's continue on. We will take this piece, duplicate it, R90, numpad's not on, R90, and then we'll just extrude that down. So right there is about where we want it. And this part you're not going to like, but I'm just going to Shift D, duplicate this all over select places of the curve, hoping that I'm not penetrating things too badly, and also hoping that I can scale things to get them to fit later, because it looks like it's going to be just a little bit offset. So we're just duplicating this, not even worrying about how off the mesh looks underneath. In fact, I'm thinking about pausing that mesh's modifiers and just putting a subdivision in there to help it out on the way to where I need it to go. So something like that will work, and we'll actually mirror that to the other side and then mirror it like so. And even though it will cause us something like that going on, we can actually use that to our advantage and just draw, like, say, a white box. Alright, so these hotkeys get a little nuts there. Let's actually delete this and try it again. So we hold Alt and we bring that out. And there's a better way than actually pressing Alt. I just like Alt because it's a modifier, which means we can use it for the state without actually changing the next state, which is kind of important in some situations at least. I'm always thinking about what I want to do now. I'm always thinking about what I want to do later. So right here, I actually want the next S sharp to sharpen at 30. And I actually want the next S sharp to probably sharpen at 20. And there we go. So we'll take these, unmark them, maybe apply to scale though, and we're just going to bevel them to make them rounded, and then control click bevel to give this some segments. And so far so good, and that's a good looking piece there. I mean, this is the back of the model, so we're not even going to be looking at it. So now let's close the door on this facility. The goal wasn't to really get into materials and texturing with. You see that? The scale got messed up. So this is a byproduct of the auto scale in boxcutter, which whenever we came up with this idea, it was important that we put it on a toggle because, you know, we find that making large sweeping behavioral changes is something that must be done with care. Just know that, you know, as a tool, we have some rules as far as changes and things that we're willing to allow fly on customers, because we do understand that y'all are, you know, individuals who have very special propensities and workflow that we must take into consideration. But also I understand that you guys are an angry mob, meaning that you will rebel in unison if we make a large mess up. So I am always protected to make sure that that never happens, because no one wants to receive messages from an angry mob and wake up to find out, you know, the updates you put out didn't actually get uploaded to the market because of a website issue or, you know, like a known bug. So right here, I do an inset, and actually that's the inset I want. I was about to say maybe we can get a different inset, but that's actually exactly the inset I'm looking for. So we're just cutting shapes here. So far so good. And we could also get nuts in here. And we just put some little gaps there just to create transition, and we probably want to take it a little bit further. So let's actually look at this from the side. 222, you know, that's my phone number, 222-555. You know, I was thinking about getting a hops 1-800 number. It might be the worst idea ever, you know, let me know. So we'll take this, select this, Control L, modifiers, and that won't work. So we'll apply to scale, apply to rotation, and let's actually go in here, look at our stack, and we have a bunch of booleans to remove. And so we have our array working, but we need to remirror it to the other side. And so that's precisely what we want. And so we can actually take this shape, duplicate it, and use it to just put a few little more notches in our belt here. And don't worry about shading. Shading's nothing. I mean, when it comes to a flat, shading's nothing. Definitely want to be doing more work on curvature in the future. However, you know, inset's the preferred cutter of rounded things. So we select this, and if we just go under our helper, we can lower from 30 to 15. And now things are looking good here. So it's really just an auto smooth juggle as you're working through these things. So right here, we'll just draw a box, and we'll select this, Control B, and we'll just choose one of these numbers to lower the bevel, maybe something like that. So it'll lower the bevel, but it won't always update the shape visually due to a bug. But someday this will be better. But more than likely that'll take an improvement on Blender itself. So here we are with our shape. And one of the things I requested of boxcutter is the ability to, say, have it empty in an object, or an empty selected, and select that as the mirror target, perma mirror target, so that no matter what you're doing, the mirror target would always be that particular thing. I remember in the old boxcutter we also had the ability to specifically cut across the 3D cursor, which we no longer have in the current boxcutter. So these are things that keep me up at night. I mean, right now it's 11:27, so you got a small time limit planned, but we're already at an hour into this thing, just cutting boxes and talking and beveling and just making a tiny little house for a space hobo. And this apartment is still really hot. I'm just letting y'all know, it never got better. But anything for the operatives. So we'll go ahead and just cut a slice out there. And when I cut the sign in the previous environment test little asset thingy, terrible way to describe it, I found that this particular part is a good case for sort. So instead of leaving all these modifiers, I'm just going to Control A and apply that. And that way I could just bring this forward, because it just looks better that way. For me, Shift S, origin to geometry, and we'll just mirror that to the other side. So the first thing I want to do is actually put the boxcutter logo in the center of this thing. Not that. That is not the boxcutter logo. We will make sure there's nothing there. And the logo's upside down, so I'll press tilde to rotate it inside. So when I tell people that tilde and R rotate, what I mean is it rotates inside, not rotate like classic rotate, not rotate. That's on the list. That's like the biggest item on the list. It's like, please, proxy, for the love of God, add rotate back, because people won't stop writing me about it. I'm going to turn off sort, and then we'll mirror to the other side, and we'll actually put this up above, I believe. Let's see. Let's do a cut. We can go to box here. And so we're trying to cut, and it's not working out right, because the sorting is just bananas. What we need is something like this, actually. We need like after sort, but that's an idea for another day. So how would you get around this sort of situation? Which we came up with a situation to work with double mirrors, which doesn't really come up in this scenario. But for something like this, you know, what we'll do is actually not do that. We'll remove the mirror, and we'll remove the last boolean that we added here, which is this one, and we'll just use regular mirror and boxcutter. and we're able to do what we have to do and get it to the other side. Now the alternative is that we could just mirror all the cutters using the Hops mirror tool, but it's equally easy to just do it this way. I think one of the reasons I also use box cutters so much is it's just so easy to add cubes with it. I'm just a guy who loves boxes. I mean, I love the circle too. I know you haven't been seeing me use the circle very much, but the circle definitely has a role in this as well. In fact, I would just jump to the circle, but we need to put a piece here for this to be held on. Alright, so we're just putting a triangle here, and then with this we are done. We can call it a day. I'd like to thank you all for watching this video. So we'll just press 2 after activate solidify to push it out on both sides. Just kind of think about how we want to go about this. So the way I'm going to go about this is I'm going to control A, geometry to mesh, and we'll press Y to rip this off, SX to scale it out. We'll delete these two faces, and we'll delete that one, and they're not needed. So I'm just trying something I'm thinking just off the top of my head here with making this. I tried it a couple of other ways before, just goofing off, but I didn't even get a good look at this area before, so I realized that it's even less relevant than I took it for last time I was working on it. So we're just getting in here and just cutting it, making it fit, and then of course we'll select the main building, mirror it across, and now we have it on the other side. The next thing, of course, is maybe slice the tips off a little bit. However, by doing that, we have to reconnect them somehow. So let's see how we want to do that. We'll actually use apply modifiers, which will just simply do just that, apply modifiers, and we'll just delete from the other side. And just take a look at this piece and think about this for a second. So something like that. I've never looked at one of these before, so I probably should have gathered reference. I'm terrible. I should have shown reference, talked about the importance of reference here, but instead I'm just going to just make do and survive for today. So I'm going to hold shift in order to bring up the array gizmo, which the origin, if it's not near the object, it just puts this thing just it just puts it wherever the origin is. So another just one of those things with the array to add on the checklist. So I mean, I'm talking about them today as problems. I'll be talking about them tomorrow as things that have been solved. So we'll control A, just apply all that, just so I can grab this and scale it up freely, because this is definitely box HQ. Or yeah, we'll say it's box HQ. And we'll bring that back. And so for this one, we just want to cut this off. For this one, we'll just leave it. So far, so good. And this is our little box cutter HQ. So we're almost to the end of this. Shift S, origin to geometry. I didn't want to spend too long on this, but I literally could model for like 16 hours straight and just be soldering on, just because it's just such a hoot sometimes whenever you're on this and the computer's running smoothly and there's no technical problems and everything's just great. You really just get in that zone, and the tools are just great and there's no crashing. And I haven't saved this file once, or I did save it actually. I see the file name, sorry. I was caught lying on video. MX Expo, sorry, but I'm terrible. I should have looked at the top of my screen. I usually am really on a Jesus take the wheel situation with these files nowadays, where I just really let Jesus take the wheel, and if I'm successful, the file was meant to be. I'm going to duplicate this just so I can put it here. These things just, they work great. You take them to bar mitzvahs, space colonies, funerals, these little bars. Just add a little bit of added visual complexity to just make it look like more work than it was actually worth. And like there's a way to just open this stuff. So voila, we are now looking pretty good here. And we'll bring this out as well. And we're just shifty duplicating, bringing pieces in. This piece is just too simple, so we're going to need to bring in a cube, and we'll actually grab this face here, Control I, delete everything else, and just grab this, extrude it out. Alright, and we'll just delete all those first, giving us just that. And that looks good enough to 2D bevel. 2D bevel doesn't exist anymore though, so now you have to hit bevel, but you can press 2 and jump into 2D mode. And this is a lot better than 2D bevel, which was originally written by me. Now you're using bevel, which was also written by me, so you're still in great danger. But it's getting better. Now that these tools are being consolidated, it's going to be a little bit less work and double code around. I mean, the same things were happening with boxcutter back in the day before the massive rewrite, where to add a feature to one thing, we would have to add a feature to 3 things. And so it really made it where adding a feature was just not very fun. So the same thing is kind of happening with hops as well, where I think hops will be in a much better state by the time all this transitional stuff is done. I should have led an ad and said hops is transitioning. That would have been a good way to pitch it, because we are trying to definitely put booleans in a subsection of hops and expand hops to encompass much more. I mean, we already did it with modifiers in 2.8 after modifiers began getting a lot better and receiving some love. So, subdivision is probably the next one. I feel like subdivision has a lot more additional to it that can be enjoyed, especially if users are taught to model correctly in it. I mean, not saying that people are being taught to model incorrectly, but sub D is always thought of something daunting, but really, with a few easy things like keeping your edit mode version of sub D off, and really looking at your geometry and removing doubles and just working smart. I think sub D is really not so bad, so I may be revisiting it in the future. Also, there's a little bit of a shading issue there, so I could fix that if I wanted, but it's easier to just not in this case because it's already on a curve, and I'm trying to keep it all non-destructive and dynamic. So if I wanted to adjust it, then that would have been my chance to go and adjust it to make it fit. But we've gotten so far without having to do anything drastic. So continuing on, we're just going to put a single cut here. Do I gotta say that I'm doing these cuts, you guys? Like, you should know. He's about to do a cut. He's about to follow it with another cut. One of the age-old questions of boxcutter is, what do you want to do after a cut? The answer is another cut, especially if your last cut is successful. We've determined through recent polling that most people want to do a cut right after another cut. Sometimes bevel. Sometimes they want to bevel after a cut, but for the most part, people just want to cut right after a cut. So it's cut, 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 cut. To quote, someone great and irrelevant. So continuing on, we're just going to take this and draw a box. We're going to take this and draw a box. Sorry, that's funny to hear myself say 4 to 8 million times in this. I mean, I wrote like a 4-page doc on box alone because I wanted to really emphasize that box is just such a powerful tool just in itself. And whenever boxcutter was started in 2.8, I really wanted to just keep working on box. I'm sure Proxy wanted to move on as well, but I was obsessed with box. I was like, dude, we could make box so perfect. And I think someday we'll revisit it. Like if everybody gets bored, I'll be like, I got all these ideas for box that we could do that I think would make box really crazy. But for now, box still remains my baby. It's fast, it's clean, it cuts only 8 verts unless you bevel it or array it. Then it's exponential or begins adding to it. But continuing on, we have this plane, and I want this to be a door, but I don't want it to be the entire door. Just like I was about to draw something using annotate, but it's for the better that I don't have it. Let's save the file, just because I don't want any crashes at this point. We've put so much work into this, and really I've just been testing fate. So we'll just put a loop there, put a loop here. We'll grab these 2 loops. I don't have my boundary loop hotkey. And, we'll put a loop here too. Maybe bring this up, bring this down, swing this one around. Maybe mirror it to the other side. And we'll just put this in between and then dissolve it, invert mode in order to get rid of it. And so I like to have my mouse right here with this edge selected and press Alt V. And I've just been doing this maneuver over and over, like seriously. I will just rip something off and just kind of see what I get. Like sometimes you get some really interesting geometric results. In fact, in this case, I want to merge these 2 at last, and that's my interesting result. This is my maybe less interesting result, maybe if I was that type of artist. But we'll select this, control click, and we'll bevel this, and we see that our scale is unapplied. So we'll go in object mode and apply that. Someday, I hope that will just be not a thing anymore. And to set this up so we don't have to deselect and all that, we're just gonna right click select boundary loop and just assign a shortcut of shift tilde. So that way when we press shift tilde, we get the boundary loops, and we can just work without having to deal with that anymore, because pressing that over and over would be crazy. And we're just modeling and merging, just creating just this interesting shape here. In fact, before we bring that out, we want to think about what we want that to be. So I'm thinking something like that. And then if we mirror it over in edit mode again, we could then grab this and just bring it out like so. And we'll just take these faces, press I, and I'm getting really complex with this. I know I'm about to regret this because of the next steps, but this is how I find out what really needs to be done. There's some questions being asked right now, like, what do we need to do with mirror? What do we need to do with knife? And these sort of things. And so, as a result of these questions being asked, I'm like, sheesh, guys, we just released an update. I was wanting to take a break and chill, but now y'all are making me work again. Was it trying to work immediately? But to work we go. So press K, C, and we'll just do a little cut in here And in my dreams, I want Ngon to cut like this, where it's perfectly oriented, even if you're not oriented perfectly when you start it. It's more of a behavioral thing, but I'm always on about it. So we'll just bevel this area. And the scaling here is just terrible. So let's bring this up to this vert and then bring it over. And we'll just take this and Control B. And bring it over just like so. And we're just modeling like this door piece. So just trying to create something that's a little more interesting, which sliding that up made life a lot more interesting. I mean, maybe too interesting, so we gotta make some adjustments here. I mean, not perfectly accurate, but just having some fun here. Just some late night modeling with Master Xeon on the boxcutter network. So let's see, maybe one more, maybe a cut just for good luck, just right there. Maybe rotate it like so. We'll draw a cut. Okay, you know what it is first of all, we need to set the auto smooth to like 15 or 10. We'll rotate it to the side and we'll draw it starting off the shape. And you see how it just kind of jumps on the shape. It's kind of weird. I think there is something definitely going on with local mode. Local mode is just one of those things, like it's a beast of its own. But you know, I understand everyone's need to want to work in local mode, but something about it is just so weird. But we'll figure it out. We always do. Everything is always a series of battles being fought and then figured out, and then on to the next struggle. So now we have this piece made, this eternal piece that took so long to make. We're back in local mode, our favorite mode to do cuts in now. And so we'll press Control A, Visual Geometry to Mesh, Shift S, Cursor Select. We'll bring in a plane, and with our plane we'll just array, but we'll press Z so we can array on the Z. Really doesn't matter how offset this is because we can always just SZ, which I'll go and explain after this. S and Z is how I want array to fill. You know, array should just be just that, just us placing this and just boom and calling it a day. You know, scale the archetype of array. So, you know, before we do this, I just want to let you know that if we had a mirror present, it's going to cause us a world of hurt. So we don't have a mirror because I'm well trained to not have these problems happen. But when we hit knife, one of two things is going to happen. We're going to have a good mesh. Let's just get rid of this mesh. Or we're going to have problems. And it looks like today's our lucky day. So we just dice this mesh. Dicing tool coming soon. So everything looks like it worked out except for some shading issues. Let's see. Probably right here. We'll just merge that and copy that over to the other side. And you know, that'll do. I know, not perfect, crucify me. So here we are. We'll place a plane here, Alt M, vert at center. And so with this vert, we're just going to extrude it up to here and then over here. Maybe not there, maybe bring it down to here. Where we snap it to, verts. All right, and that's it right there. So I'm just going to take this particular vert and bevel it just to round it out. And then we're just going to convert it to a curve, but we're going to cancel it by right clicking. And so for this object, now we want to put it on an array, but on the Z. Let's see what, oh, I was pressing Z for, yeah, I bet this object has unapplied rotation. Guaranteed to make sure what we're about to do very entertaining. So let's just go ahead and apply that, and we want to now array it on the Z. There we go. And now we can take this and look at our curve first. Let's look at what we have. So the curve's going the wrong direction. That'll never work out. So we want to recalculate the normals, or switch direction in the right click menu. And now we can take this door, Control P, curve deform. Not going to work unless we choose Z axis. And so it almost works, except that we need to select the curve, tab into curve mode, and press Control T 180, and now we have our deforming door. And so if we raise it up, it just goes up like a star facility in space was kind of the idea I was thinking of here. These were based off of some collectibles I was looking at earlier, or for the last couple of days actually. I really like to stare at something for a moment and ponder it before going ahead and attempting it. So now we have our door capable of rotating, and just to add a little extra oomph to this, what we can do is we'll jump on layer 20, or actually we'll jump to layer 30 and we'll press I for location. And we only care about the Z location, so delete key for, we just want to add a single keyframe. And right here at 10, we'll bring it all the way up. Insert single keyframe. And so now the door just drops down, but it looks super fun, right? Like it just drops down, it's just like boom, the guillotine. We can select these keyframes here, press T. With our mouse over the timeline, you can press T. And we'll change this to be bounce. And so, boom, now it just drops hard. Like drops the base, but it's like drop the door. Boom, 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 you know. But let's take a look at this in action. Boom, boom, boom. And that is our scene here. So the final part of this in these little tests I was messing with was I put a plane there, and then I would bring it down just below everything and bring it out. And use this for my grass. So there's someone named Wolf on Blendermarket who puts out an add-on called Realgrass, and I managed to pick up a copy of it. I picked up a copy of all his tools because I'm a fan. And with Realgrass, you're able to just select an object and just boom, add grass. And we'll change this to 2000 and increase the scale. We'll go with buffalo grass as well. Put some of that in here. Scale it up. Maybe go with 3000. And then finally weeds. And for weeds, I like to go with these dandelions. It just really sets the mood. And we can scale those up as well. Maybe lower the number to like 200. You know, we have so many dandelions. And so now we have our scene all set up. So when it comes to presenting it, I actually went to object and presented it like this, and then started playing with matte caps to find just a good matte cap to be the scene. But this was the idea, was like kind of kind of an overgrowth area that would basically have like a shutting door. Let's look at the roof area. We could still be doing so much in this particular scene, just goofing off. Like for example, one last thing, and then I'll call it a night. All right, and that is, it would be cool to have like a floor panel that's going around this thing. So the side seems to be quite busy on this model. Also, we can turn off fuel line. Fuel line's just pain in the neck. It gets rid of dots. So let's see what we have here. Where's our snapping? We don't have snapping to the midpoints. And the reason is because of the whole decimate thing. If we turn that off, we still do not. Oh, we turned render off. Now we have those points. Just kind of, you know, just a little hack just to get around. We might even add a snap mode to calculate unmodified or something someday. Once I actually present it as a competent idea and explain why we would need it. But, you know, that case has just been shown in this video. So let's just move this back. I keep pressing the wrong button, but it's because I really need to I'll spend some time with my woman, so that way she doesn't have to be sleeping on the couch. So we'll cut this here, and this cube's going to go places, and by places I mean it's going to go all around this thing. So we got to prepare it for its journey. I mean, first we want to select both of these, do a difference, make sure that it's making a difference, you know. And we also want to turn decimate back on. Sorry, wrong modifier. And let's see, what else do we want to do here? We probably want to solidify it, but also we want to apply to solidify and hide the interior one of these and put a loop here. Maybe extrude that out and just scale it in a little bit, make that into a notch. On this object, we can just lower the bevel width, just tighten that up ever so slightly. And we have our cursor here, and we have this object that's deforming around a curve. So we could actually take advantage of that. So let's see, snap the cursor here. We'll snap our cursor there. I mean, we'll snap our object there. Snap object to selected. Snap. How come none of these are the right option? Snap selection to cursor. All right. I don't know what's going on with me. I must be tired. You know, sometimes I sleep like 3 hours a night because I feel that it will give me less support emails that I have to reply to in the morning if I just don't sleep a lot. So these are the things that go on in my life sometimes. So we will press Control, or actually Shift S will do origin to cursor. And we just want to select this curve, select this, tab into local mode, and let's talk about it. So we want a plane, you know, plane set up for array like this, just grid cutting planes. Really, bisect just needs to be a tool. It's on the task sheet to be given to the next available merc who wants to take up that mission. So right here we have a good cut. And we'll shift select the cutter, and we'll just choose booleans, knife, and just pray that that went through everything just the way we need it to. We'll come back to object mode, Since we're cutting in this area, it's not going to show up, but we're just going to array it. Let's see. Just like that. And we'll select the curve and the object again. And this is why I keep going local, is because there's no way I can select this object and select the curve. Just not possible. So there's the curve, there's the object, here I am in local mode. So we'll take this, select these two, Control P, curve deform. And we got so lucky. Maybe we can improve this by messing with the curve res. No curve res will save this because this isn't a Bezier curve. So that's also something we'll be dealing with in a different way pretty shortly. So for this one, we want to just move it off a little bit and maybe wonder why the heck this isn't cutting. All right, everything looks good so far. Probably want to make sure welds at the end here. So if we look at this one's modifier stack, we can see that the final cut we did was this one here, which had box. This object's name is box, meaning that it was it's the cutter. So let's see, where did our box go? It probably ended up right here. All right, sorry, I'm in edit mode. Must be getting late here. All right, so we definitely want to make sure that there's no double geometry, because that could also be messing up the cut as well. And also, I just don't think this cut is going to let me have that. Just asking for too much here. But I bet you I can find out exactly what the cause is here. So, not one to take defeat. And I wanted to do something in a video just kind of showing the troubleshooting process that you would go through if dealing with something like a Boolean not showing. I mean, you know, the geometry gets pretty sparse in these sort of situations. In fact, I'm just going to take this and clean the mesh, taking this back to its simplest form. No questions asked. Love clean mesh. Alright, and there's no additional geo around. There's 10 verts right here, which means that this cut should definitely be showing. Unless it's not a sign. So that could have been the case. It could have been something super simple and I was just being silly. So we'll put a solidify on this. Also, the normals weren't consistent, so I just wonder how terrible I could have been at this particular phase right here, unknowingly. But no, once it deforms, it gets crazy. So solidify array of curve, and then weld. Let's make sure it's not solidify. And they're definitely penetrating. So they show up here. They do not show up elsewhere. So the next thing would be to toggle the decimate to make sure that decimate isn't simplifying the mesh too much. We can look at the wireframe mode and just make sure that there's not any issues happening here. And there's not. So we gotta take this up one more notch. So I'm gonna just begin hiding. Wow, this viewport looks crazy like this. You start looking at that, it's just like, wow, what is this? So one of these is a hot liner, is now my new theory. You know what it is. You're not gonna like this answer, you guys. This is why I'm terrible, by the way. They're being arrayed on the wrong axis. So it never would have worked, you know, unless I saw it all the way through to the end. So, you know, we actually have a ton of stuff that's been hidden. So let's Alt-H, bring it back. We'll press 1 to go to this layer, and let's see if we have any of our cutters remaining. And we don't. So I'm going to deal with this nonsense once and for all so I can wrap up this video. I got preoccupied with the idea of wrapping things up that I just kind of had a bit of a workflow meltdown there for a second. But really, you know, leaving this with a successful result is the goal of this video. And so there's no other solution than success. And so, you know, regardless of how flawlessly I float through this or not, I hope this has been a learning process. Right here, I have all these dang modifiers on, so it's just not going to work out. For this, you'll need to turn all your modifiers off, and then you can actually use knife, and it will just knife like a knife. And of course, at this point, we want to remove any doubles just to keep things clean. And you already see that it's not going to work out very easily. So there's just some areas that are just not going to let me have it. So let's see if we can find those areas of doubles. In fact, I can't see anything at this point. So let's do Control Shift, click, and look at what we have here. And it looks like the geometry is not even what it's supposed to be. So because it's a wire, we don't know what we're looking at. So I'm just going to turn the top one to a, I'm going to use S sharpen to mark it, and then we'll just delete all these faces underneath. And we're just going to give this a double solidify. In fact, I have to control click it to add an additional solidify. And we just want to bring that back. Kind of went crazy, probably because we're in local mode. We'll move it up the stack, press Shift R to repeatedly move it. And then solidify. Solidify array curve weld, and everything's now looking good, nice and proper. We can come out of local mode. This has been such a painful experience right here. Sorry about that. I should have left it off, but I was, you know, on the ref has these cool little things on it, and I don't want to leave them off. They look so cool. So let's do this, guys. So we'll select this, which is already cutting in. We'll select our main shape. We'll Alt-X, mirror it to the other side. We'll do that again. Shift select, Alt X, mirror it to this side as well. And now we have the cuts that we wanted. So just a little bit of troubleshooting in action there, even though the issue was caused by my own incompetence. Also improving these pads, I distinctly remember that my plan was to cut these out and only keep the ones that are going around it sequentially. So let's go ahead and do that. Just use a little bit of box cutter here. And you see how, you know, things just didn't work out. So let's undo, get back what we had, which was this. And in order to bypass the sort on all this, I mean, weld's on. Does weld need to be on? Probably. Don't want to risk it. Let's just turn all these off for the renderability and cut this out. And of course, because of everything going on there, took a small second, but we were able to get that cut pulled off. So with this bowl shape, which I kept live by holding shift, we're just going to Alt X, mirror that to the other side, select this, select the main shape, mirror that to the other side, and now we have just these panels where I want. So the next level would have been to be able to work on these panels and then have them transition everywhere. But I feel like while we're lucky and while the time is still fairly punctual, we should just wrap up this video and end it here, because otherwise I will be talking for another 2 hours. This was intended to be just a short 20-30 minute video, and it ended up turning into a 2-hour Master Xeon extravaganza. So with that, we will wrap up this video, and I'll see you guys next time.